first up, of course, are Distress Minis. These are things that these little guys created quite a bit of buzz at this show. I think people are really excited about seeing the Distress pads that they like just in a small version. A couple of the features to point out about the Distress Minis is that it is the same ink, the same felt, everything is what's in a large Distress pad. One of the things also is the stackable case. I wanted a case that would lock together, so when you store these minis, you don't have to worry about them shuffling around in a bag or that the lids fall off, so that was really important. Of course, if you want to label them, we have downloadable labels on our website, rangerink.com, so you can print the small labels that go on the sides of your minis so you can see what colors they are. Some cool things, that raised felt. This was also really important for this. That's why I needed that same felt, because you can still use this to go around the edges of things, go on the edges of canvas or burlap or anything that you want. But with the mini pads, we've also launched mini blending tools. So the mini blending tools, there's 2 in a pack. It's a small, just shy of an 1.25 inch diameter. And what's great about this is that it now has a circular pad. So these are great for smaller projects. It wouldn't be necessarily to blend a big background. If I was going to blend an entire tag, I would still go with my regular blending tool. Okay, these are really important because this is what's going to give us that surface coverage, that much larger area. But if I'm doing small things, maybe I want to do the edge of a card or something like that, I can just go in with this, and it gives me the ability to quickly go around the edge of things and give me that really light application. Just a little easier to control for smaller projects. If you have die cut shapes or chipboard alphabets or anything like that, you can also get into those small areas. Now, one of my favorite features though about the mini blending tool is its ability to blend. So let's take our wood grain stencil, we'll take that down, and let's take a couple of colors from our mini. I can go in with this, I can tap this on. Now the mini blending tool, because it's just that rounded foam, is going to allow me to go in and pounce with this tool. So something we've not been able to do with the previous blending tool, because the previous blending tool, if you use it this way, you're going to get those lines and those edges. This will not, and here's why. If you look at the foam of the tool is slightly larger than the tool itself, so when I push down, see how it rounds out that edge? It just kind of rolls around the top of the tool. So that's why if I go in and I pounce this out, I'm able to go in and create a really nice blend of color.
Tim, are you going to have the foam as well available for that tool?
Yeah, the foam refills are also available for the tool.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, one thing to keep in mind though when we are talking about replacements, and a lot of people forget this blending foam is washable and reusable, okay? Until it disintegrates, which would be many, many months, probably years for most crafters, you can just continue to use it. So even if you have dry distress paint on it or ink, you can wash these with soap and water, and you can reuse them. So here's kind of the blendability factor of that I like. So here I'm able to use many shades of that. You can see it in true color. So you can really get the depth and that highlight of that. So that's what I like about it. Let's go back into LED. So if I want to work with paint through a stencil, like I'll use this one, maybe we'll go in with some Distress paint. Maybe let's take a little chevron here. I can go over this, place this down, put this on my craft sheet. If you want to mix different colors of paint, we can do the same thing. Distress paint, remember, is very, very fluid paint. So what this is going to allow is I can pick up some of this paint, and same thing, I can just go through here and I can pounce this out. So instead of using a paintbrush or trying to go direct from my dabber, I can just use this. And you can still use the large blending tool, but like I said, this is just going to give us a softer edge on the outside. So I guess if I was going to go all over something, I might use a large blending tool, but the mini one, really nice for this. Just lets you fade that out. It's cool. I know, so when you see it, you're like, wow, that is really easy to do. All right, let me just wipe this off. Okay. Other things we can do with Distress paint. So Distress paint, of course, we launched 13 new colors. So these are the 13 remaining colors. When we talk about new, these were the ones that now completely finished the Distress paint line. Colors like peacock feathers that everyone seems to have waited for. Save the best for last, right? But Distress paint, keep in mind that this is a multi-surface paint that will work on paper, chipboard, grunge board, fabric, metal, glass. It's completely permanent and washable. You don't need to add any mediums. You also don't need to heat set it. But it's really cool. Like, these are the new letterpress. These are the new wood letterpress from Idea-ology. So Using it on wood, really cool. Normally if I'm going to go and paint a letterpress, I'll just take this, sand it with the sanding grip because I like the distressed look, but this is stained, so they come in all these different stain finishes in one pack. You don't need to sand it if you don't want to, but I like kind of that distressed look. If you want to paint it, oh, let's pick a lighter color. Let's do this one a little lighter. I'm just going to take some distressed paint, and I'm going to paint my letterpress like this. So instead of using a brush or trying to dab over the top of it, you're just going to be able to coat a layer right over the top of it. That just makes it easy. Instead of a paintbrush, just makes it a little easier. And then we can distress it. So here I would let the paint dry, or I could use a heat tool to dry it, but I also like this one's already dry, I like to go back to my sanding grip and just scuff a little bit of that, and then I can take my distress ink, put a little bit of ink on there, and I can go and ink over that. Just like I've done here. Just really nice because it's able to go in and stain that wood. So same thing here. Cool. I like that. Gives you a really great kind of vintage look with those blocks. That's cool. Alright, let's try this one. I'll set it down and totally forget. Okay. So something else that's new, in addition to the paints, the minis, the mini tool, we've done some rebrands of some of the products. So first up, of course, Distress Embossing Powder. Now, Distress Embossing Powder, this is an embossing powder that's been around for quite a while. We've discontinued all of the colors except for these 4. We kept 3 of the originals and introduced a new color. And the reason is we decided to put this more into our embossing program because I don't think people really understood distress powders. You know, they think, oh, it's for a nice quote, or it's for a wedding invitation or something like that. And it isn't, because this is a textured embossing powder with release crystals. It has particles that will fall off. So what we've done is we've called out the effect that it gives, because this is a textured embossing powder. It has that texture like rust or stucco, so we've called that out. So Vintage Photo now says rust effect. Black Soot is a charred effect. Antique Linen is a stucco effect. And Pumice Stone is going to be a stone effect. And it creates that look by embossing it, rubbing off the release crystals, and then going in with some ink. So I can show you. I'm going to go rip a board off of it if you'd like to. It's always fun to rip it off the wall. So here on the bottom you can see these distress powders. So when you see them on a surface like that and you see the effect, it just makes more sense because you're like, oh, I get it. Like, that's that whole look and feel of that, you know, that look and feel of rust, which I think is cool. Another thing we've also revamped is the Distress Crackle Paint line. So we've discontinued all the colors of Crackle Paint now. The only thing remaining in the line is clear rock candy. And the reason is, to be honest, after the launch of Distress Paint, I found myself using the other crackles less, and like I just didn't need to use them anymore. Because rock candy was the most versatile. I could apply it thick to get bigger cracks. I can apply it really thin to get crazing. I can stain through it if I want to call that out, or I can paint over it. So if I wanted the look of broken china crackle paint, I would just put on rock candy and then paint it. But then I could blend it and stain it. I can blend and stain it. So I went to Ranger and like, we just need to get rid of it. And also I just felt like that product would continue to have challenges of keeping it hydrated. You know, it's a paint that has a shelf life. That if you don't use it, it will eventually harden up. So the clear rock candy has no pigment in it at all. So it has a much longer shelf life that you can use. And I think also giving your customers one product with a variety of looks, you're like, okay, I'll have one crackle product, but I don't think they're going to say, oh, I need 24 crackle paints. You know, so I think that's how most people do. They're like, oh, I want a crackle product. It's cool. So that's those guys. So another thing we've done that people seem to be really happy about, which I am, is the marker spritzer. I like this thing. This is a cool little tool. So this is a tool, I didn't invent this tool, but it's certainly been around for many years, but it's never been brought to the mainstream market, and I wanted to bring it so everybody could work with it. What's cool about this is it's just a handheld spritzer tool that will convert any type of marker into basically a spritzing device. It's really easy to use. So if I'm going to use it, I can go in with a distress marker. Pick a different one. That's too green. We do move on. So here I'm going to work with the brush tip. I'm going to insert this right in here, and there's a flat edge on here. So what I want to do is I want to insert the marker and have it rest on that flat edge. So I need to loosen this screw. If it's too far back, it's not going to work. If it's too far forward, it's not going to work. It needs to rest where the nib of the marker just goes right over that air hole. It's going to basically blow ink off the nib of the marker. Just tighten that screw by hand, and then what I can do, I can place this down, quick spritzes, just with your hand. So I can go through a stencil if I want to create that effect. I can go directly over something if I want to create a spatter effect, and I can use any of the colors I want on there. Now, what I also like is that it's not just for distress markers. It could be for a variety of markers, depending on what it is you're working on. So if I wanted to work on something like glossy paper or metal or something like that, you can work with any of your markers. If you have larger markers, like an alcohol-based marker, you can remove this, and this collar piece in the Spritzer tool is removable. So then I can take a marker, I can use the brush tip, or I can go in and use chisel tip. So I can take a chisel tip even, as long as it goes past that opening of that air hole, it's going to work no problem. So now I can go in and spritz that. So it really opens up the potential if you wanted to have spray paint. You can take a paint pen, and now you can spray paint on a surface. If you wanted to work on ceramic or something where you needed a permanent marker, you can put a Sharpie in there, and you could spritz a Sharpie on a surface. If you were doing any type of food, if you wanted to do cupcakes or cakes, you can do food markers in there, and you can airbrush over the top of that. If you're doing watercolor, you can take a water brush and you can put that in there, and you can just get little speckling of water over a surface. So anything that's going to fit into that device, you can actually spray after it. It's cool. And it's really easy to use. I mean, the bulb on that is super soft. So, put a marker in here. You guys want to give it a shot. So one of the things to remember when you're working with this is that once you put the marker in, this is what's going to distribute the ink, okay? Not the marker. So a lot of people think when they're using this, they want to hold the marker like this. If you do that, you're going to get that sort of spray. What we want to do is hold this straight up and down, and it's quick bursts, okay? If you go really slow, you're not going to get anything. If you go really fast, it's going to be intense. Not bad, right? If that's what you're going for. But it's really like quick little bursts, and just keep it moving around, and that's what's going to create the speckles. And you can do color, or like what I was showing this morning, which I think people really were like, ooh, I forgot. Remember, we got this guy. We got the Picket Fence. So the Picket Fence is a white distress marker, right? So if you want to add a white speckle effect on dark cardstock or craft paper or anything like that, and even if you want to go in and, I don't know, airbrush through a number right there. You got to remember, this is an ink that when it goes on, it first goes on clear, and then it's going to dry to white. I know. You're going to sell a lot of Picket Fence markers. Yeah, you can see it's like white spray paint. See you guys. Pretty cool. So, put a marker in there if you want to try that. Anybody want to give it a go? Come on. Don't be afraid.
All right, I'll get brave.
Yeah.
Okay. Just like a step down.
Yeah.
Oh, that's easy.
It is easy.
That's not hurt, really.
No. We wanted to make sure that the rubber in that was super soft because, you know, is it going to be like a big spray ink? Are you going to do an entire journal with that? No, you're going to use ink sprays if you want to cover that. This is about creating a spritz effect through a stencil or just, creating an accent. It's super easy.
Yeah. Do you want to try it?
And I love the fact that it's going to give, I think, markers just a different application. You're like, okay, I like to color, I like to do that. Oh, this is going to be something different. Yeah. But like I said, it's something that maybe a lot of people are like, I've seen that, I've had that, I don't have that, but now it's something new to work with. So, some other new things besides the new layering stencils, we've also launched some new scissors with Tonic. For those that like these small snips, which is a great scissor to have, it is a micro-serrated blade that's not going to dull because it sharpens the blade with that friction. It's got push grip handles, non-stick, so these are the ones everyone's loved. Now we just have much bigger versions, shears. So this is going to be the same blade. I know. It's like, whoa.
Those are scissors.
These are scissors, man. Yeah. Same blade, same handles, same non-stick. But now what's nice is that you can go through, if you then just cut through the fabric. Cut through the whole fold of it if you want. Yeah. And you can go all the way back, like if you were doing a tag, you can just chop off the top of a tag if you're doing die cut stuff. So again, this is going to cut paper and cardboard and chipboard and wire and metal, and yeah, they're nice. It's power when you pick those up. Yeah. So yeah, I did that because again, yes, they are available. Yep. So even if if you're going to work with multiple folds of fabric, you can still just go through and just cut through the fabric. I know. They're nice.
Is that how you described them when you asked them to be made? That you want them to do that little motion sound you just made?
Yeah, it comes with a sound effect. Yeah, this was, I would probably say this was just over 3 years in development. Yeah, that I wanted. Because I wanted the same features of this. And so the challenge, of course, was keeping that micro serrated to where those blades would kind of have that friction thing to continue to sharpen. So, you'll feel in there that it has that little friction in there, which is really good. Because it still has that little micro serrated part at the top. That's what does it. They're nice. Yeah, they're phenomenal. All right, so any questions on anything particular before I get into alcohol inks? No? Okay. I always like to separate those because those don't play nice with anything else. They're their own deal, right? So sometimes I'll bring them in and so alcohol ink will work with distress? And I'm like, no. It's its own thing. Okay. So alcohol inks. What's cool about alcohol inks, of course, this has been a medium that we've had for many years, and we really haven't added any new colors or anything in quite a while, and now we have them, and I like that. So what we've done, we've added 6 new colors to the line. Now, if you're familiar with the Adirondack line, you know that we usually launch this in a light, a bright, or an earth tone. These are none of those, because it's really just an intense color, and if you want it to be bright, you can apply just one layer and it's going to be bright. You want it deep, you can apply 2 layers, it's going to be more of that deeper earth tone. If you put blending solution, you can make it translucent like the light color. So these colors we felt really balance the rest of the palette. So I wanted something that's going to, not replace anything that you have, just give you a whole different level of color to use with the existing palette. In addition to the 6 new colors, we've also rebranded the entire line. Changed all the packaging to it, got rid of that taupe, got rid of that really fancy mountain range that's in the background, and just gave it a whole new logo, because I think the alcohol inks are used for paper crafters, they're also used for mixed media artists, as well as fine artists are still using the alcohol inks. Also, I did some things just to kind of simplify some of the components of it. The blending solution really simplified the package. Like, that's what it is. It's a solution that's going to blend, lighten, or remove the alcohol. Blending solution is to this ink what water is to watercolor. Okay, that's what you're going to use to thin it out, that's what you're going to use to extend the color range of it, and that's what you're going to use to clean it up as well. In addition to the solution, we've also rebranded the fillable pen and renamed it as well, just to make it simple, because when this came out, people thought, oh, wait a minute, I need a pen, I need to fill it with all these colors of alcohol ink. And you don't. You can, if you know you're going to use a color all the time, you could fill it with that color, but once you do, it will always be that color. So really the idea is about filling a pen just with blending solution. And so that's why we've called it the blending pen. The packaging talks specifically about just filling it with blending solution. So it's still sold empty, but it's designed to fill with blending solution. So when you do, all you do is pull out the nib. You can remove the nib, take the blending solution, squeeze that in, give it probably a 3-second squeeze, give it about maybe 10 seconds or so to start soaking in, and you only want to do that maybe 2 or 3 times, okay? And then the blending solution is going to be soaked into that material. It's an airtight cap, so once you replace the nib and you cap it up, it's going to stay wet, no problem. It's never going to dry up in the market because both sides are going to be airtight. But here's what it does. Instead of doing backgrounds, like I still love using the alcohol inks, I still love doing backgrounds with the ink applicator tool and creating some effects. I also like to colorize with them. So this is Ranger's ink palette. This is 2 drops of alcohol ink in the well. It will spread out and dry probably in about 3 to 5 minutes. If you want to label this, you can download the labels on Ranger ink, and you can punch this out just with a circle punch. So we have labels for all of our products. People don't realize. You can go on and you can label the tops of all your distress pads or your distress paints and stains just with a 3/4 inch circle punch. We've got labels for our mini pads, the size of your big pads, and it prints out the color name and the color of the product right there. So this is now dry ink, and what this is going to allow me to do is if I have an embellishment, plastic or metal, or maybe if I want to work on gloss paper or transparencies, I can take this, that's just going to be my pen, and clean it out. There you go, because it's going to be a self-cleaning pen, and I can dip it into any dry color, and now I can color with that color, right? So if I want to pick up some of this color, I want to pick up a little purple, I can now go in, and it's going to color and automatically blend, right? Because it's just transferring our color, but it's also just going to clean itself out. So it's also really cool that if I'm coloring a small area, I can just pick up just a touch of color and just go in and colorize that area, or use the fine tip of that. So I can do the same thing with the fine tip. If I was going to do an embellishment, one of the things that when people are using it, you don't want to get out the bottles of ink and the ink applicator and drip it on a brad or drip it on a charm, but having this makes it really convenient. See, I use this a lot more in my studio than I do the bottles. The bottles I use if I'm doing backgrounds. But if I just want to quickly alcohol ink a charm, I don't want to get the ink, get the tool, get the felt, squeeze it on, dab it on when I just need a touch of it, okay? This also allows you to create your own custom colors. I can go into multiple colors, and you can't contaminate anything because your inks are dry. So that's just going to give you a whole new custom blend of color on it. So I think this is also going to just educate customers to say, got it. I can put blending solution in that, and yeah. And now if you're going somewhere, you're going to a class or a crop, like there you go, there's your alcohol inks. You don't need to bring this if you're not doing backgrounds. So
Tim, on that pen, do you need to store it horizontally like the distress marker so it wicks back and forth? Doesn't matter?
No, it doesn't really matter. No, because it just has liquid in there.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't really have any. So the material in here is a completely different. This is more of a delivery system. This is all about gravity that's feeding it. This is just a material that's stuffed in there that's going to keep the ink from sloshing around. Okay. Because the thing about inks, even paints, the more air that's stored in there, the more it's going to evaporate within itself. So that's why we didn't do an empty chamber, because then it would evaporate inside. So by soaking into that material, like when it soaks into the felt, it's going to stay wet. Yep. It's pretty cool. Yeah. Now people see it and they're like, now I get it. And that's why I wanted to relabel it, because people still, they're like, now I understand. I didn't think I needed one of those pens. Now I think I need one of those pens. All right, let's do a quick background with alcohol ink, just to give you a little refresher course if you haven't used it in a while. So one of the things I like, we're just going to take felt, put it on that ink tool. Remember, this is going to be a replaceable, disposable felt. We're going to use a new color. This is indigo. I'm just going to use a little bit of this, because this one's intense. It is. It's an intense color. You put it on too dark, you can almost go to black. Use a little mermaid. Use a little metallic mixative. So metallic mixatives, those are the only ones you have to shake up, because they have a mixing ball to mix the metallic pigment. And this one's really concentrated, so one drop like that is enough metallic for about a 12 by 12 background. So don't get all crazy on the metallics, because you'll end up with just metallic paper. Then on our surface, we're just going to start stamping this out. And I'm just going to do half of it just to show you. It's a really, really intense color. Yeah, it's a cool color though. I'm going to take some blending solution and just start blending my background. So the more blending solution you add, the more fluid this is going to become. Okay? So that's what's really nice about using this, is that you have the ability to really alter the effect of it. And I'll even continue this side of the paper just to show you. It really extends the life of the ink that's on the tool. Most people think, oh, I have to keep going back and adding more ink, adding more ink, adding more ink. That's what you add, because that's just going to bring that back. If I want to shake some of this on, I can still shake it on to create that effect. If I want to lighten it even more, I can continue to go over even more. It's always going to re-wet itself with blending solution. Yeah, you'll see the depth of this one too, which is cool. Like the color is just good. Yeah.
So if that was too dark and you wanted to lighten it up, you just use more blending solution.
Right, so if I wanted to do that, I could just go on with blending solution and put that on. And when I continue to go over this, it's just going to continue to lighten. And if you want to lighten areas quicker, heat is always a great thing. Heat will almost, well, you'll see in this one area, it will almost kind of bleach through the paper. I'll show you on the back. It's kind of weird. It heats that ink, boom, right through the surface. Yeah, so you can create almost a white effect and get it back to that just using heat, because it evaporates the color much quicker. Yeah. If you want to do a background, so let's say we want to do a different kind of background, I'm going to create more of a gradation. I'll show you that. Because you can use alcohol inks a lot of different ways. It's not always about that. So you can do a monoprint. So if you wanted to do a monoprint background, let's go ahead and just clean some of that ink off of there. You can use blending solution to clean it off. If I'm working at home, I never use blending solution like this to clean. I'll use hand sanitizer or something cheap, because any alcohol will clean it off, right? So I wouldn't use that's the good stuff. I use it for the crafting, yeah. Yeah, it's the good stuff. All right, so here I'm just gonna put some mixative down. Let's use some of the colors this time. Just scribble it on. Use some of the new honeycomb. They want to use just a little touch of teak wood. It's brown, so remember that. There's a little botanical. We're just going to go for something just a little earthy. It's going to make some different shades of brown. Blending solution. So all of our ingredients, everything we did on that, we just threw it in a pile now. And then we can take our paper, and now we can go through and we can create some really fun, kind of playful backgrounds. Something that we could still go in and stamp on. And I love the look that this gives, especially if you're going to do a background, because you can see all those like striations of color and metallic in there. So a different effect. But what if we wanted to use a color? You were talking about a color and blending solution. I can create an effect by starting out with a color. We're going to do a dot of a color, and we're going to put on blending solution. Okay. Then I'm going to take that color and I'm going to apply it to an area. I'm just going to start swiping it. If I want to add more blending solution, I can continue to blend out this section. Then I can go in, add more color, more blending solution. Yeah, this color's mermaid. It's pretty. Let's add even some more color. I know, when they use it, they're just like, oh my gosh, yeah. Because most people just wouldn't think to kind of create this band of color. And then same thing, you can just add more blending solution, and this is where you're starting to just change out the intensity of the color, whether you want to fade it in, whether you want to fade it out, wherever you want to add that. But I think just creating kind of this striation of color, pretty cool. And if you wanted to create a plaid or a linen, we can just go the opposite way, so you can also swipe through that. And it just creates a very subtle pattern. Let's say you wanted to go lighter, okay? If you want to go lighter, just remember it's all about starting with that. So if you're going to work, let's say we want a lighter background, you would start with the solution and then just do a spot of color, okay? Now, if I mix my color, a lot of times I'll just kind of go on the ink tool, but this is going to be really, really soft. But maybe that's the kind of background that you want. And you say, okay, well now I want to build that up a little bit more. Don't forget the blending solution every layer, because the blending solution is what's going to make this more fluid as you're building your layers.
So you can get a nice ombre effect with that.
Yeah, this technique's actually in volume 3 of Compendium.
Another new product.
New techniques, new book. Yeah. Volume 3. It's nice. All of the new stuff here at CHA is in book 3. The Spritzer, the frameworks, everything's in there. Yep, the letterpress. So yeah, you can go ahead and build that layer. And then when you stamp on it, I mean, that's also a really fun thing. So I can take her. Where's my archival? It is. So I'm just going to use my jet black archival. Go in, stamp this out. It's fun. Yeah, it's a fun set. Maybe we want to work with leaves. They want to work with the floral.
Is that a new one as well?
The stamp set? Yes.
What's the name of it?
This one's called Daydream. So here I just want to do part of it. Here I want to add a leaf. But the leaf I want it to be subtle, so I'm going to swipe my ink pad instead of pressing. And that's going to give me a nice second generation. So if you ever want to create a subtle effect, It's all about swiping your ink instead of tapping it. And that works with any ink pad. Works with a Distress pad that way, anything. Maybe we want to take some text. So if I want to use that, I can just swipe that over the top. And then I have that ability to really go in and just add a background to it.
Beautiful. I love your release this time.
Oh, nice, huh?
Yes.
Pretty. Now, if I want to create a speckle effect, now remember we're on gloss paper. So Distress marker and gloss paper, it will dry on there, believe it or not. But if I want something that the whole entire thing is going to be waterproof, I'm going to go in with a Sharpie. Permanent marker. So here I'm going to remove the collar of the tool. Take a Sharpie. I know, don't you love that? Any kind of marker. Yeah, it's when you start going on cakes that it's really cool. So here I'm just going to go in and just create a little soft spritz. Or maybe I want to take a layering stencil. Let's see, where's that lattice? Oh, that's a pretty one. Maybe we want to create that. Maybe we just want to create this effect on the side. This is cool. Yeah, and then we'll just go into true color just to show you. It's cool. Cool effect. And you know your customer's going to kind of be like, what is that? How did you do that? Yeah, because another technique I show is using alcohol inking a surface and then going back with blending solution through a stencil. When we put blending solution through a stencil, it's going to lighten that area from your alcohol. It's pretty cool. Sure, of course. Yeah.
So when you're working on this slide, what setting do you have it on?
So, well, it depends on what I'm doing. So if I'm just doing regular making a project, I'll work in LED. If I'm going to watercolor, or if I want to see something in color, I'm going to work in true color. So true color is going to allow me to really see depth more. And then if I'm reading, I'm going to go to incandescent. So that's going to allow me to read a magazine, read the books, whatever. And then sometimes, like if I'm die cutting in LED, I'll even knock it down a little bit because you can adjust the brightness of this. So if I don't want it like flowing, maybe I'm doing a lot of detail cutting and your eyes are, you don't necessarily need that much light to see. Yeah. But I mean, I think my favorite thing about this is the fact that the light itself can just, it's out of your way. Like most craft lights are here. And you're like, you know, you're kind of working backwards. It doesn't make any sense. And I just like this. Like I'll use it for photography. Like when I do my videos, like that's my video light. Yeah, because it's out of your way. Yeah, sure. It doesn't have their booth number, right? Their booth 2107, I think. Ish. 2107. Oh, there you go. That's your hotel room. They're in your hotel room. Yeah, but I like the edge because it can clamp on. I like that it's remote control, and I like that the remote is magnetic. So.